All right, so I hate to keep talking about this really, but I keep seeing all these videos on cars and these people going around car lots and looking at all these new cars that are priced. They have these long lines of inventory of like Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, even some of the Japanese automakers. They have built up inventory. I think less so with Toyota and Honda, just because those cars are actually quality cars. But some of these Dodge, Chrysler, like Stellantis products, you see that they have, I mean, just looks like lines and lines and lines and lines of inventory. And they're going up to these cars. It's like $60,000 for a Jeep Cherokee, like just the normal model of a Jeep Cherokee, 60 grand for a Jeep. And I'm like, who's paying that for a Jeep? It doesn't even look, it's not the Wrangler where it looks kind of like the cool off-roading one. It's just the normal looking Jeep. Like kind of it looks like it doesn't look anything other than any other car. It doesn't have the iconic Jeep look. I'm sure it's not that reliable. And it's $60,000. You know, you could get basically like a new Tesla right now for 35,000. I look online and there's some that are just barely used for like 30 grand, 30 to 35,000. Some of them even a little bit less, depending on where you live. So I don't know who would buy a $60,000 just base Jeep, you know, considering that Jeeps have never really been reliable and they're expensive to repair and maintain. I just know that about the ones that are a little bit older, and the newer ones I imagine are not that reliable either. And then they were showing like the Grand Wagoneer, which is the big, kind of like the Escalade of the Jeep world. Which is like really big, has all the features for a kind of a luxury vehicle for probably a bigger family. But that car was $115,000. 115 grand for a car. So I don't know who's buying these cars. I've said in other videos, if you're just a wealthy person and you have a ton of money, you know, maybe they're buying a few of these cars here and there. But if you had a bunch of money, I don't know why you'd buy like just a normal brand car for 100 grand. You know, you could go out and buy a new, like, if you really like the luxury cars, you could buy like the Mercedes or the BMW or even like the Audis or the Infinities, or the Lexus, right? The Lexus is actually a much better car because it's Toyota. That's going to last a lot longer and be more reliable. And if something does happen on it, it's going to be easier to fix than like a Jeep or even a BMW. Those European cars are expensive to maintain, especially as they get older. So it's no wonder they have all these cars stacking up on the lot, because who's gonna no one can afford a $60,000 car. Not a lot of people can, and that's just a normal car. You got to remember, 60 grand gets you in kind of just a normal car. It doesn't get you in like what most would consider like a nice car or like a luxury car. It's just kind of it's a new normal car for $50,000-$60,000. So I think it's good to see that the inventory is building up there, because that means people aren't they're still not buying these cars. Even if they do buy them, you know, the moment they drive off the lot, the car's worth maybe 40,000 if you wanted to sell it. Like if I bought a Jeep today for 60,000 from the dealership and I wanted to sell it tomorrow and it had 3 miles on the odometer, I don't think I could sell it for 50,000. I don't think I could sell it for 45,000. I may not even be able to sell it for 40,000 to a private person, or even back to the dealership. Like let's say I bought it for 60 grand from one dealership, and then I drove the next day over to the other dealership and wanted to trade it in. I bet they would give me 40,000, maybe less, honestly, for that Jeep that I just paid $60,000 for. Because it's not worth 60 grand. I mean, if you bought that car and tried to sell it on the open market, I don't think anyone would pay you 40 grand for it, because you'd have to get $40,000 basically from a private person. It's not financed through the dealership. It's like a private party sale. So the dealerships, I'm glad people are waking up to it and not, oftentimes it's financial engineering to get you into like a really bad deal on a depreciating asset that in a few years is going to be worth nothing, and you're still going to have like an $800 car payment for the next 5, 6, 7 years. That is not good. So the answer, I think, for most people still is buying a used car, you know, probably a Japanese car, Toyota, Honda. You can probably find a really great used car for $10,000 to $15,000, maybe 20 if you really want to get a somewhat of a newer car. But they're out there, you know, a Honda Accord, Toyota RAV, Civic, CRV if you want a bigger car, Highlander potentially, Camry. There's plenty of those out there. Even if they're 7, 8, 10 years old, they are going to last a long time. You know, well, most of those cars should last well over 200,000 miles if you're just maintaining the car regularly. And the cost of ownership is low on them. You're not going to have a bunch of electronic stuff or transmission stuff that needs repair like you would with a BMW or a Mercedes or a Jeep, Chrysler type cars. And the resale value is high. So, you know, even if you keep the car and it has 180,000, 200,000 miles on it, you can get most of your money back out of that car. If you paid $8,000 for the car, in 3 to 4 years, you could probably sell it for 5 or 6, and still, you know, you could basically drive that car for 3 or 4 years for like only a couple $1,000s. So that's what I think most people have to do. And all these new cars are just going to sit. People can simply not afford it. And if they do afford it, you see there's a crazy number of repossessions happening. People that are just deciding they can no longer afford the car because they have other expenses that they have to pay, and they can no longer afford a $700, $800, $900 car payment. So they're giving the car back, or the car's getting repossessed, and it's affecting their credit, and it's just a downward spiral. So you got to use like Facebook to buy a car on the marketplace, or Craigslist, or some of these other sites where you buy a car from just a person like me that's selling a car, or someone else that is just a private owner. They're just really trying to get rid of the car. Maybe they bought a newer car, or they have multiple cars and they don't need it anymore. The car still may be a really great car, it's just they don't need it. And me as a private person, I don't own a dealership. I don't own a bunch of assets like all these cars that have interest payments on them that I need to make sure I sell them so I make money. I don't even really need to make a profit. I'm just trying to offload my car at a reasonable price. I don't have employees that I need to pay and all these benefits and salaries. It's not a business, right? So what you get from a dealership is, hey, you're working directly with obviously the company or the dealership. If something does happen, you know, they might be able to help you out, but you're really paying for it. I think you could save lots of money by just buying a high quality vehicle, a used high quality vehicle from a private person. You save yourself a lot of money. You might not get as new of a car, but you're going to get a quality car that doesn't break down. It's going to save you a lot of money, and you're not going to have, you know, like a $900, $800, $700 car payment for, you know, the next 5+ years of your life. So it will really lower your stress if you go that route. And that's what I would recommend doing. I think that's what people are doing, because all the inventory on the lots are full. And there's just simply not enough people that can afford the prices of those new cars to move enough of them. That's why they're stacking up. So you guys let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.